Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Jasper National Park and the town site of Jasper in Alberta have been evacuated due to wildfires. Alberta now has 170 active wildfires, with 50 classified as out of control. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
With temperatures reaching into the high 30s recently in many parts of Alberta, the second most visited national park in Canada was evacuated last night. Jasper National Park and town have been declared a state of emergency with a wildfire that is 12 kilometers south of the town. Traffic was slow as evacuees tried to leave, having to take detours with the main highway closed. Evacuation centers have been set up in Grand Prairie and Calgary. And in northern Alberta, the Little Red River Cree Nation was fully evacuated on Saturday. Previously, only a part of the community had been evacuated. Now, over 7,000 residents have been displaced there. Wayne Whitehead and his family left on July 10th. He's now in Edmonton.
Just pitch black, just from like the cloud or smoke cover. Yeah, it was like an apocalypse or something. Like, it was an eerie feeling.
The Little Red River Cree Nation chief says it's up to how the wind blows whether his community can avoid a repeat of last year when 300 structures were lost to fire.
The next 48 hours is our most critical point in terms of this fire, because there's the wind variability is going to be through the roof.
There are now over 17,000 people that have been evacuated from their homes across Alberta. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs are holding their annual General Assembly this week on the Wew'suwagapo Urban Reserve just outside of Brandon. The Grand Chief and AFN Regional Chief positions are up for election this year. There's talk of the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation rejoining the Assembly, and the Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, which is part of Treaty 3 in Ontario, is making a bid to join the AMC. On July 24th, the Assembly will decide who its Grand Chief will be. They will also vote on who represents them at the AFN. Kathy Merrick is looking to keep her seat as Grand Chief. The other two in the race are George Kemp of Barons River and Daryl Shorting of Little Saskatchewan. Meanwhile, the AFN regional seat has been vacant since Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak moved to National Chief. Families of the victims of the late serial killer Robert Pickton are once again left disappointed in their fight for justice for their loved ones. A BC judge is denying their ability to intervene on the RCMP applying to destroy evidence collected during their investigation. APTN's Tina House has more.
It was at this press conference held by Justice for Girls that lawyer Sue Brown informed the public that the RCMP in BC had applied to get permission to destroy evidence collected in the Pickton investigation.
This latest step by the RCMP to seek disposal of all exhibits, a mere 20 years after the investigation on the farm began, sends the message that the missing and murdered women's cases are closed, despite the majority of them being unsolved. Let's be clear. Not only is this an affront to justice and a devastating blow to the families of these women, allowing those who disappear and murder women and girls to do so with impunity is a human rights violation.
Dr. Sasha Reed has assembled the world's largest database on serial killers and has studied the Pickton investigation.
Through our investigations, we have uncovered the fact that this is not a complete case. This is, as far as I'm concerned, an open and ongoing investigation that requires thorough, adequate, and complete investigation. If we fail to stop these applications to dispose of evidence, we essentially vitiate any chance of bringing additional perpetrators to justice.
And now, 6 months after that press conference and numerous court hearings for the families to get permission to intervene on the destruction of evidence, a Supreme Court judge in BC has denied standing to the families in this matter. for family member Lorelei Williams, whose cousin Tanya Holick's DNA was found on the farm. It's another roadblock in her long wait for justice.
What would I say to the judge? I would say, what if this was your daughter? What if this was your sister, cousin, family member, close friend? What would you want for your family member? What would you want for this person? Because it's not just me, it's so many families across the country who have to deal with this, and they are sending a horrible message to predators out there that they can get away with murder.
To me, this sends the message that space in RCMP buildings is worth more than answers and justice for the horrific atrocities that took place.
Sue Brown and Lorelei Williams, along with other family members, say their fight is far from over and will continue to lobby for those lost voices to be heard. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
A First Nation in northern Manitoba says a federal funding shortfall is creating hardship at its personal care home. APTN's Fraser Needham has that story.
The Nissi-Chow-Asik Cree Nation is located in a remote part of the province, about 700 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. Its 24-bed personal care home is largely funded by Indigenous services, but Chief Angela Lavasseur says funding shortfalls means the First Nation is having to cover the costs of essential drugs and supplies.
And it's creating this deficit of funding because we cannot let our elders suffer, go without much needed supplies, medications, vitamins, medical equipment that they need, etc., due to this shortfall. So it's creating a financial crisis for the personal care home.
Lavasseur says one of the most frustrating things is that ISC is underfunding incontinence supplies for elders. She says the government only provides funding for 5 incontinence products per day, while clients often use up to 12.
I purposely highlighted this in my press release because of how inhumane this is for our elders, how degrading it is, how unacceptable it is, and what utter disrespect this shows for our elders.
Jessie Horodecki is the director of the personal care home. She says because of the lack of supply of incontinence products, staff are often forced to drive nearly 100 kilometers to Thompson to purchase more.
And when we run out of that 3-month supply, often we're running to the closest community, which is Thompson, and we're buying all the stock off the shelves at the local Walmart, just to hold us over until our next shipment comes in. And that, I mean, when you're buying from Walmart, it's, you know, quite a bit more expensive.
APTN News contacted Indigenous Services Canada, but did not receive a reply by airtime. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
A meeting on women and gender equality is being held in a downtown Winnipeg hotel today, but it's happening behind closed doors and with security preventing certain individuals from entering. That story and more still to come. Welcome back. As the Government of Canada enters the second year of its 10-year National Action Plan to end gender-based violence, it was announced Monday that they and the Manitoba government will provide more than $6 million each to 19 community initiatives across the province to address the issue. Gender-based violence is abuse meant to harm, control, or otherwise hurt someone based on their gender. Indigenous women are most at risk. Women and Gender Equality Canada created separate agreements with every province and territory to address the needs of their residents. Half of each province and territory's funding must focus on preventing gender-based violence, not just addressing it after it happens. Federal Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Marcy Ian, says more men and boys need to be engaged in bringing gender-based violence to an end.
Gender-based violence is one of the most pervasive, deadly, deeply rooted human rights violations of our time. It disproportionately impacts women and girls Certain populations that are at risk of GBV, of course, include Indigenous women and girls, just under 5% of the population, but 21%, because I need to add that percent, 21% of those impacted by gender-based violence, intimate partner violence.
Well, today, Minister Ian co-hosted an event with Manitoba's Minister of Families, Nahanni Fontaine. The federal provincial territorial meeting is with national Indigenous organizations to discuss issues involving Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit peoples. The meeting at the Delta Hotel in downtown Winnipeg is closed to the public, but not just them. The Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, or CAP, was also not let in, something they were told roughly 2 weeks ago. So they are meeting in a separate room. Charlene Lavalley is the president of the Association of Métis, Non- and Status Indians of Saskatchewan, one of several organizations who make up CAP. She says her group has been part of these meetings for 25 years. And after speaking with Minister Marcy Ian last night, she thought CAP would get in today.
Inclusion is the best practice because no one organization or person, we can't take care of everybody, and everybody needs to be included. And for any group to be excluded is a disservice to the people that are out there. We're an urban Indigenous organization. We get a lot of people coming in, inquiring and looking for help that a lot of the organizations don't connect with.
A Manitoba ministerial spokesperson referred questions about invitations to the gathering to the federal government. A statement from Minister Ian's office says she met with representatives from the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples yesterday to discuss emerging issues, and says Women and Gender Equality Canada has a long-standing relationship and continues to work with the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples and other Indigenous partners. The Ontario Native Women's Association recently released a new report titled Beyond the Inquiry. The report marks the 5th anniversary of the release of the final report of the National Inquiry. It also acknowledges violence against Indigenous women has only gotten worse in recent years. I recently sat down with Ontario Native Women's Association President Cora Maguire-Surratt. Cora, great to have you with us. ONWA recently released the report Beyond the Inquiry. How do you reflect on 5 years after the release of the National Inquiry's final report?
I think my reflection is, I think when we continue to look at what's happening in our communities and recognizing that, Indigenous women are still not safe in our communities. And it's apparent by looking at, the statistics is telling a story, but also when you listen to the crises that's happening in our communities, for everything from, mental health and addiction crisis to the violence that continues to increase. We know that violence against Indigenous women has been a crisis for decades now. And this ongoing violence continues because of the lack of inaction from governments across the board. And so I think that's really, was the foundation of why we wanted to write this report, to showcase the work that's happening in communities, the work that, Indigenous women continue to do without, long-term core sustainable funding, and to continue to bring awareness to this issue.
Yeah, the report mentions that Indigenous women are still not safe, and for sure in Ontario and Manitoba, for sure, when you look at the numbers, things are worse. What do you think is behind that?
It's systemic, right? When looking at, the violence, is, there's no investments into Indigenous women safety, into our healing. When you look at, the federal budget, we see Indigenous women only mentioned twice within the budget, and it's, the investments are going to, to recover the bodies from the landfill, and the investments into the red dress alert. And so the investments that we're making is only either once we've died or, been murdered, or to recover our remains. And so we really have to start to look at, the prioritization of investing into Indigenous women's safety, into Indigenous women's well-being. There is no upstream investments happening with Indigenous women here in Canada comprehensively, and that's what we need to see.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of touching on it, but what do you think are some of the things to reverse this trend of disproportionate rates of violence against Indigenous women?
Indigenous women, you know, they have the solutions in communities, and we need to invest into their leadership. And, you know, we're looking at some of the barriers that we're continuing to see here in Canada. One of them is the nation-to-nation distinction-based policy to Indigenous relations. This is currently excluding Indigenous women and our organizations as legitimate partners in decision-making that impacts our lives. And so not only does this violate our rights under UNDRIP and under Canada's obligations under CEDA, that fails to recognize where the majority of Indigenous people live in urban Indigenous communities, it's dividing our communities. And we need to be able to look at adequate investments into Indigenous women's safety, into our healing. You know, where's the investments into preventing the deaths? That needs to be the measurement of the outcome that we need to be seeking here in Canada, is not only looking at how the systems, whether it be the policing system, justice system, and looking at solving the cases. You know, that's, you know, we need to have a better outcome than just solving cases. We need to see an outcome of improving the quality of life for Indigenous women. You know, currently here in Canada, Indigenous people, have a 10-year less life expectancy than the rest of the population, and that's just not acceptable in a first world country like Canada. And we need to continue to look at, like, where are those upstream investments? Where's the investments into Indigenous women's education, into the services that they need and that they're demanding, investments into their leadership. You know, currently we're investing into Indigenous women to remain the highest population in the federal inmate population. We're currently over 50% of the federal inmate population. So we are investing into Indigenous women, but into the wrong things. That's, to house an Indigenous woman within the penitentiary, you're looking at, I would have to guess, probably around $300,000 a year. That's probably not even including the cost of child welfare investments. And so we really have to look at prevention-based investments. And that's why we really wanted to write this report, was to recognize not only there's been such slow progress for action, but recognize that Indigenous women continue to be creative and innovative, and they're doing work all across our communities through this project-based fundings, but our lives are not projects. We need to have core sustainable investments, and we need it now.
Cora, we'll have to leave it there, but great to hear from you.
Oh, thank you.
Time for one last break, but stick around. We have one woman's unbelievable account of surviving a bear attack still to come. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Susan Hare sent in this stunning photo of some community fireworks along the shore of Manitoba Island. Susan calls this a Anishinaabe Statue of Liberty. Thanks for sharing. Remember, you can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 24 in Halifax, rain and 26 for Fredericton. 23 in Kuujjuaq, sun's out and 20 for Nain. 27 in Montreal, 19 with showers in Val-d'Or. Rain and 23 in Sault Ste. Marie, showers and 21 in North Bay. 22 in Thunder Bay, a sunny 24 for a high in Sioux Lookout. 26 under the sun for God's Lake and Norway House. Showers and 26 in Winnipeg, sunny and 28 in Barons River. 34 in Regina, 36 in Swift Current. Smoky and 25 in Buffalo Narrows, showers and 26 for La Ronge. In northern Alberta, smoky and 23 in Fort Chip, showers and 25 in Fort McMurray. 21 in Edmonton, sunny and 33 in Calgary. 22 in Vancouver and Victoria, rain and 28 in Kamloops. 16 with showers in Prince George, 17 in Smithers. 28 in Old Crow, rain and 19 for Whitehorse. Cloudy and 18 in Yellowknife, 24 in Norman Wells. 12 in Sax Harbor, 24 in Paulatuck. 14 with rain in Chesterfield and Baker Lake. 2 in Resolute, 4 in Arctic Bay. A Yukon woman is sharing her story of survival after she was attacked by a grizzly bear near the town of Haines Junction. Jordan Hasselbeck has the details on how she managed to escape with her life.
On June 30th, Vanessa Chaput was out for a run along this trail near the village of Haines Junction when she came across a group of 3 grizzly bears.
I was right beside them, and it was too close. There was no way that
Chaput, who is Casca, says she spent a lot of time in bear country and knows what to do during an encounter.
I have a really good respect for them, just because growing up with my dad and everything and going hunting, you're in bear country, like things are going to happen, and we have run into bears in the past, but I've never run into something like this before.
She tried to give the bears some space, but her dog Luna got off leash and chased 2 of the bears away. Then the 3rd bear, a male, charged at her.
When the bear had taken me down with my head in its mouth, my first thought was just kind of protect your vitals. So I went straight into the fetal position. My saving grace was from Walmart.
Chaput was wearing a plastic hair clip like this one, which broke in the bear's mouth. She believes that stunned the bear and it let her go. Once free, she quickly got behind a tree.
So I chose this tree right here, and I was able to get in between, and the bear ran in between the willows. I was watching him, and he turned around and charged back at me and actually stopped right in front of the tree.
The bear then turned its attention to Luna, who was barking.
If it wasn't for my dog barking, the bear was going to come finish the job.
With the bear distracted, Chaput made her way towards the highway.
I looked at my body and I seen like my arm, and I had blood coming down my face, so I actually had, my one eye had gone red from the blood. I knew I was bleeding heavily and that I needed to get to help, so I didn't run. I just kept my eyes towards where the bear had gone, and then I walked up onto the highway.
She called 911 and her husband, who came and picked her up. A nearby campground was evacuated, and over that weekend, Yukon conservation officers euthanized 3 bears that matched the description from the attack. The area where the attack happened has since been mulched, and rain has washed away the blood. Chaput spent a couple weeks in hospital.
So I have puncture wounds all up in my arm. I have a broken bone. I have a lot of nerve damage in that area. And then my tricep was torn into places.
She says she doesn't feel any animosity towards the bears and hopes that others can learn from her story.
Like, I don't blame the bears for what happened. I don't blame my dog or myself. It was wrong place, wrong time, and like, again, it could have happened to anybody.
Jordan Hasselbeck, APTN National News, Haines Junction.
Wild story. Thanks for sharing with us, Vanessa. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. For more on anything you've seen here, plus much more, visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward, Marcy McGuitch. Thanks for being with us. Stick around for an encore presentation of Face to Face. That's next. Have a great night.